Shiranui is one of those decks that did get impacted by the ban list. Today we're going to go over a particular build that you can build towards to. See this as a guy with the original Oboro as the main grade 3 boss? That's correct. We are not using Crest at all. Shiranui before Crest support actually had really a good foundation to build upon to, which I'll cover throughout the list as well. But we can still have our phenomenal strides such as Rin, Makuro, and other strides that I'll mention too. But we still have some interesting options that we can try out to help close games better too. There are still certain support in the Crest support, such as like Furai and Seikai, that we can still technically use actually. And I covered that and what that looks like too. So let's get right into it. Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. The great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase. So for the grade 3s, we are maxing on 4 copies of Oboro. Again, this gives us access to the history collection straight when we go first, and even cases when we go second, we like to get the protect markers and be able to do somewhat of a decent turn, but also force discard in that particular turn as well. This also will get better if they have a rearguard that you can dominate, and on top of having other cards such as the Shiranui V to be able to dwindle the opponent's resources more that turn too. Unfortunately, because Mizukaze did get hit to the ban list, we don't necessarily have to revive certain grades to be able to restrict for Mizukaze, so that isn't really applicable as much anymore too. In terms of more Shiranui cards, we are playing the V Shiranui for a couple reasons. He has a beater that also goes into soul, draws you a card, and then if they have a rearguard, you can make him bounce it, and also they have to discard a card. So furthermore, they're losing resources while you're still having some numbers, because without the crest, you will not scale in power. So that's actually really appreciated. Some neat tricks that you can do with this card is that you can do this on the first couple attacks before Jaku Meisu attacks, but you don't have to put it into soul just yet. And when you bounce everything and then call back everything, this can go back to your hand, but then Superior Call once more, and now you have another 22k beater that you can then put into soul and draw a card, and so on. Also, what's really nice about this is that you can ride this as your Vanguard to get a protect marker too. This is also another option if you're going second. So if you want to go into Jaku Meisu directly, this is actually not a bad ride target as well. In terms of more Shiranui cards, you can technically also play Zanki, which is also pretty good. I would add that as an additional ride target, so it could be your 5th, 6th ride target too as well. So you get the extra dominate, and then of course it can force a card from your opponent's hand onto the field on the next following turn too. So there's a couple plays you can do that too. You could also change into more of a Zanki Crest build if you want to approach that build too, but you do miss out on the history collection because you no longer play Oboro. So you really had to play with that build, with the crest and those restrictions in mind too. So going into like the rest of the grade 3/grade 4s, this will kind of dictate on getting our resources, which is Forbital. Forbital lets us get the Shiranui V, as I just explained too, but also other targets such as Esperidia for just having a generic restander. That's always appreciated, but it's also grade 4. So worst case scenario, especially if you're trying to go into stride with the history collection stride, then you can use this as discard fodder. So you can search it goes to hand, and you pitch it for stride. And it's up to you if you want to increase the certain ratios for the other grades, but I wanted to include a new addition, which is Fusing Kango. Some of you don't even know what this card is, but it's another type of guard restriction, just a little bit differently. It's on attack, you can Soul Blast a grade 3 and then bind as many cards from your drop zone, and he gets an additional 5k for each binded card. And then your opponent, they cannot call Sentinels from their hand to Guardian Circle directly. So they can still guard with grade 0s, grade 1s for just, you know, bigger shield. They can still G-guard, but this is just another card that like is kind of like a pseudo guard restriction. Again, Mizukaze was better. Again, Jamio Kongo days were like more oppressive. This is kind of like the next best thing. It's something I'm trying out. And also, if your opponent doesn't know, especially if you do this on a Jaku Meisu turn, you Superior Call this last minute, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, what? I was saving the PG for not only the Vanguard, but also the next rearguard too. And now if you get so big, it's going to be more challenging for them to guard, especially if you're able to see drive checks with a crit and stack it onto Fusing Kongo too. If you don't want to go that route with Forbital too, you could also play cards such as like Caliburn or Bracing Angel Ladder. It really depends on what you value and what you expect to face in your metagame too, so keep those cards in mind as well. For the last of the grade 3s, we're playing the 4 grade 3 heals. You still need to survive. This is still good for pitch fodder for your history collection stride, so just very appreciated. There's interesting plays that you can do. So like with Forbital, you could actually revive any grade 3s, including your heals. So you can revive your grade 3 heal that you may have used, or maybe lost to damage and it healed, and now you can revive it and then use cards like your Yamashibuki or your Jakumetsu to bounce it back to your hand. So you could do neat little tricks like that too if it makes sense for that game state too. Onto the grade 2, Sengeki. For consistency, it's a ride fixer. Also, this on boost, if your opponent has 4 more cards, you can Soul Blast. They have to discard a card. This has that pressure too. So it's pretty flexible, but overall, it's just a consistency boost with the deck with the other cards that you want to ride up. And in this case, specifically the Shoto Doji grade 2. So we're still playing 3 copies of this card. I've seen players also bump this up to 4 to maximize on that ride consistency. Yes, moving forward, it is a pretty useless card. It's just 5k shield that you discard or use. But that early game actually really helps this deck long term too. So that's why I still value this card as well. And again, with your mulligan and your ride fixers, you can get into this card pretty consistently throughout your turns too. So technically, we're now playing Crest, but we still have access to restanders such as Furai. And also Seikai too. In this case, I have 4 Furais only, but you can play in addition to the Seikais. You can replace this with Seikai completely. It's really up to you, the flexibility, especially if you don't like the Shoto Doji grade 2 as well, or any of the other grade 2 lineup in general. But just having a restander that gets power for a domination or 2, it does help with the numbers a bit, because you still want to get as many cards out of their hand, so your hand effects like Rin are actually detrimental, and then it makes it harder for them to guard against like Fuz and Kango too as well. And then last grade 2 is the Yami Shibuki. So this card, I've been using this for like the longest time. It's a really nice card because you're able to get tokens out of it. It becomes a little bit stronger on its own too. And it helps actually make Jakumetsu turns happen too. Because with Jakumetsu, you need to retire 2 grade 0s and the tokens qualify for that. So that helps. But again, if you have other grade 0s like your triggers that go into Soul, it'll see that and also get the power too. And then again, you can bounce things that you need, especially if you called something from the grade 2 Shoto Doji. On rearguard, this can easily bounce that and also make that a 3 attack turn pretty easily. And it could be like your Oboro that you need for writing. It could be something else that you need in the moment too. Onto the grade 1s, we are playing 4 copies of Unen. This card is actually really good as a ride target. So essentially, on your grade 2, when you ride over it, you can Soul Blast a card and actually reveal a grade 3 normal unit card. So like your Oboros, your V Shiranui, your Fuz Kango. And then you can search your deck and add any other grade 3 to your hand, and then bottom deck something after shuffling your deck. Why is this important? You can search for a Forbiddle, which sets up really, really well for your turn 3. This also searches for your missing Oboro if you drew into something else and you still need Oboro. If you have like the OT or some heal trigger, you could actually bottom deck it back to your deck. So that's actually pretty nice. And then as a rearguard too, when it boosts, you can shove the card into Soul and then bounce 2 rearguards on the field. This helps have some early game pressure and then also fill up the Soul and then getting your advantage back to hand so you can reuse it for the following turn too. So really, you have some flexibility there too. I really like having 5 to 6 rideable grade 1s too. So with that, we have Rui. So this card I've been trying out for the past few months, with crest, without crest. It's just finding the room for it. But essentially, depending on your opponent's grade, you can draw or make them discard. But on rearguard, it actually comes up more because you can keep abusing it, where you can call it to rearguard, Soul Blast 1. Your opponent discards a card, and they only draw if they have 5 or less. So if they have this big hand, you can annoyingly dwindle their hand. So it's actually pretty good in that respect too. And sometimes it just makes it even more inconvenient for them to guard and keep certain pieces, especially if they want to keep like ticket shields or protect markers for the Rin turn. So it just puts that pressure there more. Other cards you could put in is like the top 5 grade 3 searcher if you want to play that as well. You can increase the amount of Ruis too if you really like this card too. And the reason I mentioned that is because I am playing 2 Hanalis, so this deck needs a way to hard limit high multi-attack decks so it has enough time to close out the game. The longer you're going against Shiranui, the better it is for Shiranui typically, because you're going to run out of resources to stop Rin turns. If you survive 1 Rin turn, you're not going to survive a second Rin turn. So Hanali just helps survive just long enough to be able to do that essentially. You got my Gutsu too. Something I wanted to add, the shield quality with this. We have actually pretty good G-Guards too. And then worst case scenario, you can also call this from hand too for the shield value. And then Sanctitude, because Sanctitude good in this metagame and gets around certain guard restrictions too. Onto the grade 0s, we're playing the Midori starter. The name isn't required anymore because technically we're not playing Crest, but I play him because of the SP. And speaking of SPs, we're playing 4 crit Noroid. So this is the Shiranui crit that goes into Soul. You draw a card defensively. Very helpful for this deck overall. I am looking for the 4th SP still. So if you know anybody or have one, DM me or comment below. And then of course, more crits. We have the Stride crit at 2, and then we have 2 of the GB1 into Soul crit. So depending if you have issues with the Soul, you can change it to a 3-1 ratio, or you can go to the full board of 4. It really depends if you need more for striding, more for soul. I have that 2-2 split just to have that balance because, you know, it seems to be working for me, but that's something that you can change too. With the crits, you still want to have that pressure too, but we still have the PG draws so we can survive. Perfect guards are so important, so that's why this helps. And it also is somewhat of a combo deck because you need certain pieces like restanders, your tokens, your grade ones, etc. This is just to help build a big enough hand to survive still. And then, of course, we have the Dragon Empire OT. So literally everything that is like your stride turn gets so much better being able to restand the Vanguard. You get more cards out of it too. And then also you could do interesting plays with Mukuro turns. If you drive check it during their domination of their Vanguard, then you can stand their Vanguard and attack another rearguard, especially if it's like higher base power, so you can get more draw. If your Vanguard stands, then you can have an opportunity for Furai or even Sekai to be able to restand again to extend more attacks too. And then, of course, if your Vanguard has like crit pressure, such as like Jakku Mesu or maybe like the discard fodder from your History Collection Stride, it's just like an extra cherry on top too. Onto the Stride harmonics, of course. The 2 History Collection Stride Geto Surokan. So discard on hit, discard a card. You get your 2 protect markers too. So it's actually still important because we are playing the Oboro instead of the Crest. And then, of course, we are playing 4 Rins. And so, especially against like Excel decks or Force decks, they don't generate protect markers. They have to rely on orders. They have to rely going second with the ticket shields to get around this. If you can't seal the deal with the first Rin, then you can seal the deal with the second one for sure. I've also included a second copy of Jakku Mesu just because we have the tokens. And sometimes you're a bit of a grind game too, especially if you're going back and forth and need to apply Vanguard pressure. So the second one could come up, but you could always still take this out for something else. Maybe like a Progenitor Dragon or Drachma, for example, too. But I definitely recommend the Mukuro, especially the G one. It's more flexible because you can stride into it regardless if you don't have the same copy or not. Again, you can actually take advantage of this with Sekai too if you play Sekai, because when you dominate your opponent's Vanguard, Sekai sees that technically, and as long as you have the soul to pay for it, you can use Sekai to immediately get 10k power and also draw, essentially. And so that way, when it comes to your actual battle phase, it actually is stronger. And then when your Vanguard attacks, you could do Sekai again. But again, it depends on the soul. And depending on your card ratios and the trigger ratios, like I mentioned, you can build your build towards that more as well. And add a second copy of Mukuro too, if that makes sense. You could even play the new D-Series retrain too. You could do a 1-to-1 split ratio, so that way, if that one is a better option, then you can go into it. For situations like Bracing Angel Ladder too, you can play the Goku, so sometimes like you can't even dominate, but you need to get that off depending on your game state. So this is so useful in that regard too. So you guarantee a domination. I'm trying out the GB8 just in case as another option to close. Again, we cannot play Sukumarukan anymore, so this is kind of like, okay, what's the other things that we have? There's other strides too that you can play and try those out. It's just that these ones seem to be more the ones that do come up. And as you play Nubatama, you realize that a lot of the effects are very scenario based. G-Guards, 2 copies of Moralord. This is probably one of the best G-Guards that we have. We also can draw a card if they have 4 or less too, but it gets just a massive shield for every card that they have. The 1 copy of Gorohokan, especially if you need to disrupt a certain grade 1 in the back row, this is still vital, and just having some shield as well. And also Gandorokan, this is free shield essentially, that comes up pretty easily. So the question you may be asking is Shiranui still a threat to be concerned about? Yes and no. I feel like it has been tampered with its power for sure. The way I look at it though, it's almost like Shiranui before the crest support. So if you're to a degree, it's like that, but we have lost Sukumarukan, we lost Mizukaze. We have to figure out different ways to close out games a little bit better, essentially, too. For me, going into an event, I would still consider this as a matchup that you should practice against, too, and at least be somewhat familiar on how to deal with this matchup, too. Also, feel free to comment down below for any suggestions or other cards that you think is worth trying out. And if you've been playing Zanki with the crest, feel free to provide feedback on the comments too as well. And if you want to see more deck videos and deck guides, you can check these videos out.